Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live stream. I'm here with a wonderful guest, Jimmy the Giant. Jimmy, it's great to have you on the show.
Wow.
Can you introduce yourself for anyone who's been living under a rock for the last number of years?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you. We was just saying off camera, but yeah, big fan of the channel. Love what you do. Love what you do. Love the vibes. Love your accent as well.
Thanks a lot.
Um, yeah, I'm Jimmy the Giant. I make video essays, sort of exploring British culture, British politics. I guess, notably was quite right wing growing up. Became a bit of a hustle bro, self improvement kind of pipeline, and then found myself watching Jordan Peterson, and then for a moment thinking that we need to like sort out Islam or something, and then
Tidy
after
your
a while,
room. First of all, tidy your
I
room.
tidied the room. It's not that tidy at the moment, to be honest. Maybe I should start listening again, but. Yeah, I did all that, and then I had a sort of, I was kind of more, the Tommy Robinson stuff was more like 2018, so I kind of moved sort of back away from that for a while. But I would say I was pretty firmly right wing for most of my sort of mid 20s up until, yeah, like 28, 29. No, it would have been maybe like 27. So probably just after COVID, I was definitely one of them. I didn't get vaxxed. I hate to say it, I didn't get vaxxed. I was really one of them boys. And um
And what happened?
I you know what? I like my YouTube journey was effectively making videos about parkour, extreme sports, and I was sort of like, following this interest in how people my specific angle on sport was always the cultural side of it, like why young people like doing these things and then the story of it, blah blah, blah. And eventually I had this video idea which was why, like, what happened to chavs. I had it in the back of my head for ages. I was like, this would be a really good video, but I didn't feel like it was suitable for my channel when I was doing extreme sports. And then one day I was like, fuck it, I needed an extra video. It was like a December, and that's when ad revenue's good. I had a load of brand deals, and I need an extra video. So I was like, all right, I'll make this one on, chav culture. And
Can you explain? Because a lot of the people on this channel are from outside the UK. So
oh, really? I didn't
most
know
people
that.
are from the UK, but there are some Americans and
Yeah,
some
yeah. So
Europeans. Can you
chavs,
explain? Yeah, explain chav
yeah,
culture.
chavs were like a underclass, like a low class Brit, typically white. They lived in sort of lower quality housing, government housing. And they were really the cultural boogeyman. So if everyone's scared of people on boats now, it was the chavs back in the 2000s. And yeah, I was kind of like looking into it from, I was right wing at the time, but I noticed this topic wasn't really, no one talked about it anymore. So there was no like, um I didn't really have a political bias on the topic. So I really was able just to read it. And I remember when I was like looking into it, I come across Owen Jones, and like my bias at the time would have been Owen Jones as a woke lib. And I was like, but I listened to it and I was like, actually, it's kind of interesting. And then I just went on this process of making videos about subcultures. And then that is inherently always going to be political, because a lot of these youth subcultures are direct reactions to like their lives and politics. And it just became really fucking interesting to me learning about Thatcher from a different perspective, because the right wing perspective was, like Thatcher saved Britain, and everyone, all the woke lefties hate her, but they don't understand that she actually did something really good and blah, blah, blah. But then I started to really understand what she did more. And you learn more about the post-war Britain, pre-Thatcher Britain, and you're like, wow, that was a very different period of time. And yeah, just kind of like completely changed my political views over a course of making these deep dives into subcultures, eventually leading into an interest in like, well, what happened to social housing and stuff like this. And I think uniquely, I guess, I was able to fight because I was quite like marketing, YouTuber, business kind of brained. I was quite uniquely able to market videos to a wide audience on topics that were previously on the Vara media with like 20K views, and they'd be super interesting, but very limited reach. I was able to kind of bring them to big audiences. So yeah, that's kind of a bit like, yeah, that's sort of the general gist. And I become a woke lefty at the end of it, and then now I'm here chatting with Maxi boy.
What I love about the content that you put out is it's serious, but it's also humorous. I love the sort of in cuts where you have like inner monologues, and you have the not jokes, but you have the funny episodes. So I think it's really interesting. So you're bringing something that's really serious to to your audience, but also
Yeah.
you're keeping it entertaining.
The balance is tough sometimes because it's like I'll do like, especially I did the immigration one, which was really like heavy in data. Some of them are more data driven, some are more like story driven. The data ones are really quite hard to get that sweet spot because like you're talking just through fucking numbers, and sometimes that will be the joke. At some point, I'll be like, look, I know I've lost you, I know you're not paying attention, but like it's sometimes quite hard. Getting the balance is hard, but I think yeah, being able to communicate in kind of real layman's terms with a bit of banter just sort of makes it, I guess, more approachable. Because I found that was the case. Like what I found with a lot of like left wing media was that I guess the people communicate. So now I'll listen to like Navarro. I think they're really good. But I do remember back then it almost seemed too like I didn't have enough buy-in. Like I didn't understand or I didn't relate with some of the terminology they would use. And I
No,
talk about this a lot. Yeah.
and I think that's a real difference. Is like you're using terminology and then you explain it and then you explain the meaning behind it and everything like that. Well, yeah, like I have noticed that with Nova. I'm not criticizing them. Just
No, no, no.
their audience is a bit more, I'd say, political junkie types than
Yes.
your average person, and your
And
videos
it's
are really,
great.
yeah, it's great.
It's great if you're that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
your
it,
videos really cut through to like it's everyday language for everyone, and you talk about capitalism, you talk about the bourgeoisie, you talk about, but then you explain it for people who've never maybe come across these terms,
yeah.
or heard the term but didn't understand exactly what it was.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's that trying to be authentic with it. Like I will say, like if I'm writing the word petty bourgeois. I'm like, it's a bit mad that I'm talking about the petty bourgeois. So I'll joke about just the fact that I'm using fancy French words to explain to a small shopkeeper. Like,
I think that
yeah.
I know it's one of the most recent ones, but I think it's one of your best videos so far. Like,
Thank you.
I know. Probably, I'm not sure whether you'd like to answer this, but what would be your favorite video that you've put out on the channel, or what do you think? Well, I'd like to ask you two questions. One is like, what was your favorite, and then what was one that you put out that you thought would do really well, but maybe didn't, and you're not sure why?
I've had So well, you were saying that petty bourgeois one. I thought that was going to bomb. I was like, that's so niche, and I was like really unsure if the angle was right. And that one did really well. It actually did better than the other one, which I thought was going to just do really, really well. And so, yeah, sometimes they shock you. Ones that haven't done that well that I thought would. Originally, the Brexit video was actually doing really shit. Some of them, they build over time. Like, when you do video essays, it's different than I guess news and like live stuff because things can be evergreen. They call it like evergreen content and stuff. I think the "Why You Hate Poor People" video, I thought that was a good video. It came out just after the big drama thing. I was saying I'm not going to go too much into depth with it, but like the trigonometry thing. So I think my algorithm was a bit fucked at the time. I had a load of people coming to the channel that weren't exactly fans. So that video I thought was a bit slept on. But yeah, sometimes videos will do well over time. I think I did a video, I'm just looking at them now, like I did one that was about media control, and that one didn't do that well, and I thought that was kind of more interesting. Also, the financial crisis. Sometimes what happens as well, like, so the financial crisis video, I thought was a good video, but it didn't do well, so I was like changing the thumbnail, and I'm looking at it now, the thumbnail title, you don't even know it's about the financial crisis. Like, so it's like sometimes you get a bit lost in the sauce when you're trying to like repackage it and stuff. But yeah, some of them don't do that well, and then some of them do way better than you thought they would. I didn't think the Why I Escaped the Alt-Right Pipeline video would do that well. I thought it was like interesting, but I thought at the time I was not doing videos that centered me or my personality too much. Like I would put in some comedy, but I wouldn't talk about my personal perspective. I thought because I would always make topics on things that I thought already people wanted to know about that. But then actually from that, I'm glad I made that video because now I've realized when I do that thing of like, this is how it's like in my life or something, people relate with it more. So yeah, it's a funny game. As you know, it's like a funny game, YouTube. You don't know what's going to work and what's not.
So let's talk about what's happening this week. So I don't know, did you see the episode with, guy that you've met recently, Zach Polanski, on Question Time? How do you think that went?
Yeah, man. I got so excited. I was like, I felt someone commented, right? I was on my Twitter, which I shouldn't be. It's a disgusting website. But I was like, I said, I feel like I'm waiting for a football match, like when the World Cup's on. I don't even watch football that much, but when the World Cup's on, I get gas for it. And I was having a beer. And then someone commented, "It's like you're so sad," and I was like, "Yeah, fucking isn't it, man?" I used to go out, but I was like fully pumped. I don't know. I think it's because Zach was like for the first time on a really big platform, and it was against Zia, and I was like, "That's a clash of ideas right there. That's a clash of perspectives," and Zia's quite important in that space. So yeah, I was like I was really nervous for him. Like I would really struggle in that environment. Um, yeah, I don't know how he did it. So yeah, I had a few beers and watched it, and I was just fucking cheering him on. When the first thing he said, he got like a round of applause. I was like, yes, lad. He was the first one to get a round of applause, and I was like, yeah, come on, lad. And my wife was laughing. She was like, yeah, you look like you're watching football. So, but yeah, I was really proud of him. I thought he did really well. He dealt with the when he got like lambasted over hypno tits. He got like he dealt with that pretty well, and yeah, he was a little bit sometimes. So I was just talking to someone today. Like sometimes he can be a bit shaky or like stutter over his words or something. But I actually sometimes think that works to his advantage a little bit because it comes across that he's not too polished and
Yeah.
too rehearsed. You can tell he feels and means a thing, and you can tell he's a guy who's trying to get into that space. Whereas the others, that fucking Tory guy just seems like a prick. Like, and he's done this a million times. He doesn't give a shit. You can see it in his eyes. The Labour guy was just like a quiet mouse, didn't want to upset anyone, just nodding along. Zia comes across like a dick. I mean, I know if you're on that side, you would probably like him, but he just seems like very arrogant and very like,
But also, question I have: why is Zia Youssef on TV all the time? He's not elected. He's not a politician.
yeah,
He's just a guy from Reform. He used to be the chairman, so you could sort of understand why he was going on to represent Reform. But now he's just some guy who works there.
yeah. What actually is his official position right now
I
in
think he's
Reform?
for is it head of Doge, but I don't know if there's an actual title.
Oh, why
But
couldn't they have
that's
just
going
given it
really
a new
well, isn't it?
name? Yeah, innit? Couldn't they have given it its own fucking name? I hate that. I wish the like nationalist actually cared about Britain because I really hate like the Americanization of Britain. I really hate it.
Yeah.
Like I hate seeing every. I feel like I'm almost I'm like them, but toward Americanization. Like when I'm walking down a high street and I see Starbucks followed by McDonald's followed by Asda owned by Walmart. Maybe is it still owned by Walmart? Whatever. When I just see 100 American chains, and then I go and look at my politics, I go and see reform, and it's Doge. It's like, come on, Matt. I do like the
Or
idea.
DEI, they use the
Yeah,
American expression or the
it's so cringe. I hate that we're just becoming like we've been. My dad used to say this a lot, and he used to be like, oh, he would say like, oh, we're the 51st state, or like we're a vassal state to America. Or he wouldn't say those words, but he'd be like, he'd say if the Americans say jump, we say how high, this kind of thing. And he's always said this. And I never really understood it because I wasn't really so deep into politics or whatever, growing like maybe a little bit interested, but not as knowledgeable. And then as I've grown up, I now completely understand what it means. Like we are just a bitch to America, and it's so cringy. And like British culture and identity is really interesting, and like we have really cool things that we do well. And it's so cringe to me that the people that are meant to champion that both hate London. They hate London and all of its offerings, which is one of the best cultural places in the world. They hate it, and then their political movement is basically knocking off an American just corporate slop machine. It's so cringe. Like even like Tommy Robinson with the mega hats. It's like, come on, just have something original, man.
Yeah. No. This Americanization is pretty horrible. We have a comment from Alistair who says he has a question to Jimmy. When you were doing the research, when you started the research, did it change your political views, and do you think it would change other people's views too? So, like, can you tell us a bit more about your road to Damascus experience or conversion?
The conversion, yeah. Yeah, I always try and work out like because I think maybe when I was starting to make videos at the beginning, I was a bit more hopeful about converting people, I guess. But I don't know. I get a lot of comments of people like, "Man, I was fully far right, and then you've kind of pulled me out of it," which I love reading those. They're really good. Hard to know, like on a mass scale, how big that is. But I always think it's kind of like the butterfly effect. So if you can convert one guy or one girl, you don't know what they can go on to do. So I always think that, like, ironically, I would say at this point I'm not really like aligned with Destiny, but I would say if Destiny didn't do what he was doing and that didn't like trigger some of the first sort of like, I'm not sure about Trump, I'm not sure about this, I wouldn't then go on to make videos in a sense. Like there is a butterfly effect there that happened. And so I think that, maybe if I convert one or two, maybe they go and do something big, or maybe like, yeah, usually they always say like the converted are usually the best, the
The more
biggest advocate.
radical, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because like we kind of see like we're almost. I guess it's almost like making up for past mistakes in a sense, or something like that, or and also like a sympathy because you see why people get to the place that you may have been at. But yeah, like I would say the first part of this question, like research, yeah, it was learning about topics that I didn't have a very close emotional attachment to. So I would have struggled because at the time I was really obsessed over wokeism, diversity, hires, like forced diversity as they'd call it, um, like the trans topic, all these kind of things. I think if I were to watch maybe some more news or like philosophy tube debunk Jordan Peterson, I would have probably just wrote that off. I'd have found a way to like dislike them. I've noticed that a lot when I send people who are like really in the far right thing now. If I send them debunks on those topics, they tend to just dislike the person speaking a lot of the time. Like I sent someone some more news, and he was like, "The guy's a prick." I was like, "All right, man. Like it's a 2 hour debunk into every one of your ideas, but all right."
Is it because you think? See, I've tried to debate people on the right, or I've tried to debate, for example, Brexiteers, and I can never get anyone to agree to it. And I've tried to present, like, I'm not going. I wouldn't even call it a debate. I like to have conversations with people. And
Yeah,
that may sound cliche, but honestly, I like just to have a chat with people. But it's really difficult. And somebody came back and said, many times people don't want to debate or be challenged because they have invested so much in this, that
yeah, it's big.
if they were to lose the debate, they could lose their livelihood. So it's different than
Yeah.
in the past, where you could sit down with someone and have a debate, and people would cheer on their side and then go away, and everyone would still be friends. But now it's
Yeah.
very,
There's an identity to it as
yeah,
well that's like really hard, especially when you're, I suppose, young and you're in like a precariousness, I guess, is that you're almost just fucking holding on, like you're just trying to like make sense of the world. And if you think you've got it all figured out with your worldview, and then now you're being told, so like a big part of, I guess, one of the things that made me really not like the left, I guess, when I was younger, was that I saw them all as like nihilistic. Um, like they wouldn't want to work hard. It's the typical tropes. But it was like the idea that they encourage laziness, or they encourage you to like not go out and work, or if you believe that the system's rigged, why are you going to try super hard? So the right was always like, get up, motivate yourself, do all this sort of shit, blah blah blah. Realistically, it's like I've met some slobs on the right, and I've met some highly motivated people on the left. I don't think it really correlates so much. But either way, if you're like, if that's kind of what's tying your worldview together at a young age, at 20, when you haven't achieved or established yourself in the world, it can be quite hard to now accept a totally different way of viewing the world, which is arguing that capitalism is absolutely like it's a scam and it doesn't really work. If it, sort of, I always felt that believing in meritocracy, even if it was just a myth, which I now conclude it was, like I would say in that time, it just helped keep my brain focused and moving forward. And I think, and that is a thing I try and when I don't really maybe talk about so much in videos. I've done a few on like young men, radicalization, this sort of thing, and I do sort of say like there is sort of two things can be true. The system can be rigged and absolutely fucked, and it's very unlikely, but you have literally no choice but other to work your absolute arse off. Like that, those two things can be true. I don't think you should ever, and I don't hear many people just saying like, resign yourself and give up. But it's like, yeah, I think kind of being strong on that message is probably a good idea because you don't want to. That was the thing I was trying to get to. Is like, yeah, my identity was that I need these views in order to keep me going and keep me motivated, and part of it is just that identity. I didn't want to be a lazy, weird lefty caring about the climate when I couldn't, when I was trying to like meet a partner or something like that. So yeah, it's like it's a lot of things. That is the problem. It's like these can be very difficult topics because it's so hard to break those identity bonds that people make to it. It's also like, you enjoy how Jordan Peterson speaks. You have a parasocial relationship to all these people. And it can be very hard. I think my objective is to I always think it's like I always say like it's sort of like foundational views and then things on top. So I always try, this is why I always talk about history, Thatcherism, and all these sort of things, because I found the thing that changed my perspective was rebuilding the core fundamental understanding of society and structures. And then from there, I didn't really even watch loads of debunks on like the trans stuff, and I started to notice I just didn't really care that much. And then over time, I've like, learned about it a bit. But I noticed that once I started to change the foundational views, which is things about like what a political state should be, what should it do, understanding that post-war period, understanding like why welfare states exist, why pensions exist, what does the world look like right now in countries that don't have these things, and like sort of grounding that understanding of these systems. And then from there, you can kind of like think, oh, why does social housing exist? Well, because, blah, 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 we live in slums otherwise. And then from there, you've kind of got a leftist foundation. And then it becomes a bit easier from there to start seeing how power dynamics and these sort of oppressive systems, oppressive things can manifest in culture and stuff like that. So that's what I do. If to answer the question in a very long-winded ways, I try and rebuild people's foundational beliefs, I think.
What would you say would be the greatest criticism you have of the left? Because we've been speaking a bit about the right here, but what
Yeah.
about the left? Like, because I think many people on the left maybe I don't know whether this is true or not, but come across as disconnected from what ordinary people care about. Maybe when it comes to issues like immigration, you've mentioned a lot, like on your own channel about immigration as well. How the right are very good at tapping into this fear that people have of the foreigners, people coming in to take their jobs or take their homes, take their women, stuff like the old tropes. Like,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to left wingers who wanted to push back on that?
So you were saying sort of like how left can sometimes be like maybe disconnected or something,
Or I
or
think,
come across, or
yeah,
yeah.
come across as disconnected.
Yeah, I would say it's what we were sort of saying about earlier. It's what we were saying about earlier about the Navarra sort of style. It's very good. I'm not criticizing them at all. What they do is fantastic, and keep doing exactly what they're doing. And I think they're maybe even aware of this, but they're very academic. When I went on there, one of the biggest criticisms I got is that I was just some fucking idiot on YouTube. It was like it was sort of mixed. Some people really liked it, and then other people were like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Like because they're used to hearing academics, and they're used to being like people that put in the work to like advanced knowledge. And I'm just there sort of telling them really basic shit about Thatcher that they're definitely aware of. But I think that that can be in and of itself a problem, is that there are lots of intellectuals on the left, lots of very smart people that really understand a lot of things, and they're living in a world, and this is fact based, and like it's true, but they're living in a world. If you think about it, like what progressives are, I think, are people who are trying to deeply understand the world, and typically their thinking can be progressive. It's ahead of where we're at now. So I always think this around the trans thing. I was just talking to my wife about it earlier. We are talking about like J.K. Rowling, and if you think about the first thing she said that that like caused real controversy. Again, I don't really know exactly what she knew about the trans topic, but she said something like the word, what was it? It was like woman. Oh, we don't need to use the word human with a human with ovaries. We can use the word woman or something like that, right? And if you think about the mass public, that seems who have they've never listened to anything about trans. It just seems like a completely logical, normal thing to say, and all of a sudden, all of the left have like turned on her, and I can understand why if you understand like what she's inferring from that, but you're talking from a point where like gender ideology, gender like studies, and what they would call like gender ideology is like a field of study that isn't well publicized and well understood by mass society. The idea that gender is a spectrum is a very like complicated topic that is not immediately obvious to someone. And I always sort of think about like if you're in a world where you didn't have science, like back in a long time ago, you wouldn't know that the world is a globe. You would see it and it would be flat, and you'd be like, well, I see it, it's flat, and you have to know. And now it's obviously insane to consider it flat because we know from science. So sometimes progressives can have this thing where they're like, maybe they understand something deeper than everyone else does, but they don't get where everyone else is. And to communicate it to them, they have to bring people with them. And I feel like sometimes, yeah, the reaction to not understanding, like even stuff like the word racism and stuff, I think people don't understand what we mean when we say that, like, being anti-refugees or whatever is inherent. It's a racist view, or equating stuff to fascism. So you say something like reform or something like this, a neo-fascist, or Donald Trump is neo-fascist. Their understanding of fascism is Hitler, gas chambers, and Jews. That's what they understand it to be generally. And they go, well, Donald Trump isn't Hitler, gas chambers, and Jews. He's doing some stuff, blah, blah, blah. But it's because we understand that fascism is this ideology of like superiority, an elite group and an in group and an out group and scapegoat in out group, especially in, we understand all that, but you have to understand there are people that don't, and you need to bring them along and get them to understand it rather than shouting at them. That's probably my one main critique, and I don't think it's as widespread because a lot of people would say this about, but I don't think it's so widespread, but it does happen, and that's something I've noticed. And I think, yeah, you've got to have a lot of patience and understand people are not where you are, and to get them to where we are, it does take a lot of work to educate and patience. And like, yeah, it's tough. I get annoyed for sure, but it's like, you have to do it.
Do you think, and I think there's also another problem is that we're dealing with a sort of platform like social media where you have like 30 seconds to get your point across. Not talking about your videos, but I'm talking about like, TikTok videos. You're talking about, YouTube shorts where you have, okay, I've got 30 seconds to put across this. It's not the best.
Yeah.
It's not the best medium for this, where, in the past people would sit down in a pub and have a pint and discuss these things. I think social media has really made it also not just more difficult, but it has made it more toxic as well. Because it's like, well, this
just
is my
inherent
position.
in the medium. Yeah, but I mean, like, if you think about it, really how the right won so far is because of long form. So it was Joe Rogan. I mean, they still do it, like all these big podcasts. They're 3 hour fucking conversations about why trans people are shit. And people sit there and you feel like you're really, I've learned about in the 70s, there was this movement of gender ideologues and blah, blah, blah. It's long form. And that long form discussion is what built the kind of like pseudo intellectualism around it. And then from there, you can now have these like clickbaity 30-second clips, which will, what's the word? Not decimate. What's the word when you spread something? Disseminate, whatever the word. It will spread it to a wider audience. But you had to have done all the deeper stuff to get more people ideologically on side, in order to get that traction with these clips. So yeah, I think like obviously the short form stuff is difficult, but doing the big long form stuff, people fucking sit and listen to Joe Rogan every day and they're 3-4 hours. And I think that is the sort of basis of where that information then goes out into the world. And obviously the economics of it, they make a lot of money from these long form podcasts. So yeah, I think like the left just has to do exactly the same. Like I think we need to do what you're doing, making streams, and I'm starting a podcast, little plug, but like that's the things we have to be doing. And Zach gets it. He's just started a podcast, and like I don't know how it's taken us till 2025 to start a podcast. But like, yeah, I think
Better late
I think
than never, yeah.
Yeah, better late than never. Yeah, exactly. And then eventually we'll start having people clip stuff. Because one of the things I was thinking about the other day is like how easy it is to go to a shit town, film it, and then look, there's a Muslim. Okay. Or find a clip of some crime that's happened. Oh, look, it's a black person. And they just post it. And they just post it and post it and post it, and it gets out there. But we don't do the same, where we go to a very wealthy fucking area like Mayfair and show the inordinate amounts of wealth that is there, and then I don't know, walk 2 minutes down the street and you see like a council estate and you see like homeless people. We don't do this sort of visual thing, and that's very it's low hanging fruit. Like it's not the deep 3 hour talk about the thing, but we need to do like these more emotive, hard hitting visual things. I think Zach probably gets some of this, and I reckon he'll probably start showing poverty and showing it also juxtaposed to very, very wealthy people. Like, man, I was thinking about me and my missus, I always like taking her to nice places, and you just see how the other half live, because I go there as basically a tourist, and some people, they live in it. They go into these places and they're walking around with their fucking big bags of like shopping. They've spent 3,000 in a day. They don't think about it, and it's like, it's mad how these really wealthy towns, but no one makes content about that. It is harder to do because you have to travel there. But I think we have opportunities like that. Yeah.
Political X, who has a YouTube channel, who does stuff like that. He's on the stream tonight, so he should be listening.
Oh yeah,
to that.
yeah. Shout out, Al.
Yeah, he's really good. So, for example, when it comes to reform, like how are we supposed to push back against reform? Because Nigel Farage, he's he's the king of social media, at least in the UK on the political scene. So like, I saw recently where Kemi Badenoch was trying to take him on. She's like, I'm going to challenge him to a debate, and I thought that was a ridiculous idea. But how do we push back against someone like Farage? How do we deal with something like Farage, with reform? Because what they're doing at the moment, of course, is they're selling people the idea that, look, the problem is immigrants. It's a panacea. We get rid of the immigrants, it'll fix all of our problems. In a similar way, I keep saying on my channel about how they keep saying how they repeat the same sort of rhetoric as the Brexit rhetoric. Like, if we leave the EU, we're going to fix all our problems. So how do we push back on that? Because I try and say, look, and I've noticed you said it as well in your own videos. A lot of these problems stem from, for example, Thatcherite policies about selling off council houses, not rebuilding them. Then they were sold off to private landlords. They're milking the system, and then people are angry about kids can't get into properties, people can't get up the ladder, people can't progress in their careers. All of this is happening. And when we should be blaming the state, we should be blaming the political system. Farage steps in and he says, no, it's nothing to do with that. I have a solution. We get rid of all the foreigners. So how do we push back on that?
Yeah, it's sort of, I think the only thing I've seen, obviously is like, you have to look at what's worked for us. And it has been obviously Gary. He was like very prominent. He is still very prominent, but he had real like media break for a while, and I think they do it in rounds. Like, I think they sort of strategically plan it. But that is a simple message on inequality, billionaires pointing out, because ultimately it's like, I suppose it's probably not ideal to use the word, but effectively it's sort of like their grievance politics, right? So it's like, this is really unfair, and humans operate on quite a simple like. We like fairness. Like, it has to feel fair. So it has to feel like, if I work hard, I do what I'm told, then I should be rewarded, right? It's fair. Where reform taps into that is a big lie, which is that people other than you are being treated better than your state, and you're working hard to pay for them. That is unfair. And like, if you were to go down, if reform weren't lying and what they were saying is true, and you could just hop on a boat and all of a sudden you have an iPhone and you have, I don't know, fucking, you staying in the
4-star hotel.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, that is unfair. So obviously they lie about it, but like what they're tapping into is unfairness. So I think just rather than always, I've done these videos about immigration and they're important to do, but rather than always defending, just point out the unfairness in the society. And I think just seeing how Zach fucking did it, like, I think yesterday was actually kind of a turning point. It's hard to know, but just like looking at both the audience reactions and Twitter reactions, it really did seem like if you just think about it, what is the story that came away from Question Time yesterday? Is Zach Polanski. That was it. It wasn't Zia. No one gave a shit about any of the other three. I don't even know their names.
Exactly.
So it's like, the story is Zach Polanski. And so what he did was just really, he talked about real shit. Like,
something you, just to interrupt for a second, something that you had said at the beginning, earlier on, was that he didn't come across as a polished politician, and I think that's really to his advantage. He was stuttering a bit, or he messed up some of his words, and that's an asset. That's a real asset in this moment, because why is Farage so successful? Because people think he's authentic. Not that he's not authentic, but he's very good at cosplaying that. So I think Zach can go very far any advice, if anyone is listening within the Green Party, don't prepare him. Just send him out. Because as soon as you start preparing somebody, they end up like Starmer, who's very rigid, and preparation is necessary in its context, but not if you're coming across just responding to people's questions, if you're coming across in a natural environment. Something like Question Time. Sorry, go ahead.
And Zach's real strength is, and I said this to him, I went on his podcast and I said it to him, like, my opinion of him has changed over time. Not because he's changed, just because I've started to realize actually he's right with some of his approach. I always felt like you need a bit of sort of Farage is like, I don't know if the word would be like pig-headed, like certain, completely sure, uncompromising. And I thought, like, we need that sort of solid energy. And I sometimes felt like Zach was. I said it to him. I said like you came across too nice sometimes. But I've realized actually that is not correct. Like what Zach is, he's very solid and rigid on his foundational beliefs that he's like thought about and really really understands, right? He's uncompromising on them. But Zach, what he does, he listens to people. And I think what's going to come across over time is that he actually speaks to normal fucking people all the time and genuinely listens to them. And you hear it, and that's why, like, when he did a video that did pretty well when he was talking about the someone saying they wanted to shoot the people on the boats. Yeah. He obviously had a conversation with someone and actually spoke to him, and that's his big asset. And like when you're on, when you go on his podcast, it's like he will listen to you. He lets you speak and he sits there and really listens and really takes it in. And so what he is doing, right, and why he's going to be a powerful politician, I hope, but is that he is genuinely taking in the feelings of society, and he is channeling, he is being a sort of, a vessel for it. And yeah, I think that's going to be incredibly powerful, because what he is saying is coming from the people. It's like that is what they feel. And, obviously other politicians understand that, but they're trying to do it and they're folding in their own agenda. So like Reform, say they do that, they channel the sort of general resentment towards maybe Starmer, the general resentment that Britain doesn't feel like it's thriving, but they don't like really listen when people are talking about housing and getting paid shit. Like Reform are never talking about bad wages and like exploitative bosses. And that's stuff that really day to day affects people. Like I've worked at jobs where you have a shit boss and you're there for a year. That's like, you're going to complain to your missus about that every single day. You're going to be thinking about that every single day. Yeah, you might have some thoughts about migration, whatever, but every single day you're thinking about your reality at your work and stuff like that. And Zach is really like, because he isn't, trying to agitate so that he can cut taxes or whatever. He's not trying to wangle us. It's like he is just saying what people really think, and he hasn't got that agenda behind it. And I think that is super powerful. So yeah, I just think, being really locked into real material shit in people's day-to-day life and just really expressing it in an honest, emotional way. And I think that's what he's done very well. So I think it's like, I don't know. I also think that the Reform thing is getting a bit boring. Like I was just sat on Twitter yesterday. I was being like a dick. I was like agitating a bit, but I was like just posting like yawny emojis and like it's broken record. And I think that may have been what felt like came out of Question Time, was that Reform just fucking one trick pony. It's immigration. And that first guy, there was some guy who said it. He's like, I dare you to try and do today without
talking about immigration, and he lasted about 5 seconds, I think it was.
Yeah, and I think I think in some regards you can sort of pie off the immigration conversation by just being like, mate, do you literally talk about anything else? Like, I get it's a problem, but fuck me, it can't be everything. Everything can't be immigration, and like stuff like that.
And I think you're not the only person who's noticed this. It's like I don't know whether this is true or not, but they may have peaked already in the polls. So, the next election is a number of years away. So, and they're doing really well. But, you can only run so far on anger over immigration. Like I saw it with the hotels as well. Remember the hotel in Epping, which was, there were protests outside. I knew that within a week, the protest would pretty much end. Even though, the people were there, they didn't care about the High Court's decision or the Supreme Court's decision or whatever court it was. They said we're going to be protesting it, and it was within a week. There was like 5 or 6 people standing outside shouting. So people can be angry, but anger is difficult to maintain over a long period of time. So they'll have to come up with something else, but they can't really come up with anything else because any other policy is going to run roughshod, or it's going to run into conflict with the people who donate to Reform, like the real donors. No, I'm not talking about the people who are subscribers. I'm talking about the real donors. So they're not going to be supportive of policies like, hey, we need to build more council houses. We don't want that. We want fewer council houses because then we can benefit from that. Or we don't want higher wages because our businesses would suffer. So we don't want more protections for workers. We don't want things that would benefit ordinary working people or the working class. This is just a question I want to throw because I don't get a chance to speak with yourself very often. This thing of working class, what the fuck does it mean? Because we keep hearing it all the time. I'd like to get your opinion on that. Like, what is working class? Because
Yeah.
I know the Starmer and Labour have abandoned the term. They've started using
Ah.
working people instead, or working families. I think it's maybe Bernie Sanders was using working families instead of
Yeah.
working class. So as a Brit, what does working class mean?
Yeah, I guess so. It depends how you want to ask the question. Like, I suppose there's the cultural working class, and then which is incredibly, it's not a homogenous group. Like, they're very different across where they come from. And then there's like economic working class, in which we're basically sort of, I think that's a more interesting angle. It's like if you work for a living or if you own for a living. I think um, that's more accurate. And then there's what slots in would be, people who own small businesses. I think that's bourgeois, petty bourgeois, and
Petty
proletariat.
bourgeois.
I suppose that's kind of more generally accurate. But then obviously class comes from how low down on that are you, and you behave different. So if you're managerial, then it's the irony that these jobs now don't pay enough for people to have the ego that they may have once had. But like, yeah, I guess there's that cultural thing. I think of it very simply, like, I guess I'm a weird one where it's like my dad is my cat's eating fucking plastic candy. They do it when you're live, just to spice it up a bit.
Your dad's not a toolmaker, is he?
He's not. No, he's a carpet fitter. So like, my dad is, he grew. Oh my fuck! I'm gonna have to get rid of this practice. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, no problem. I'm just reading some of the chat. Most plumbers earn more than most university graduates. Yeah, today.
I can believe it. Yeah, I do think it's true that they have a quicker entry to good wages,
Yeah.
whereas they have a lower ceiling, I think. But yeah, generally it is true. And they can set up their own business, which, the ceiling's infinite if you're very good or whatever, you're lucky. But yeah, I suppose it's like
But it's a useless term today, no?
it
Working
is
class.
basically, yeah, and it's fun. Like, I just find it, yeah, it's kind of funny how, yeah, my upbringing would be, I grew up with a dad who would be talking like this and all that sort of thing, and but he ran his own business. Then he was self-employed most of his life, and we have a very modest house, but he bought a house and paid it off by sort of 60, I think. So, in some regards, we are sort of, yeah, petty bourgeois, middle class. But I don't think you would listen to my dad and call him middle class. And so, yeah, it's one of these ones. It's kind of bullshit. There is that cultural element of the way you talk, the way you present yourself. But I think, yeah, more importantly, it's just like your relationship to power and production, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question.
So I'd like to move on
Stop
to.
fucking around.
Well, I have a dog that normally comes in, but the door is shut, so it's okay for tonight. So what's happened? I mentioned earlier about the election is a number of years away. So, what should Labour be doing now that they're not doing, or what should they not be doing that they are doing? Because
They should hand the reins to Zach. They should just like,
just put him in charge.
Yeah, yeah. They should definitely be at least like looking at what's working on the left. I actually met a Labour MP today, and we were talking about it, and it's so weird. They've fully just annexed actual left wing thought from the Labour Party. It's like insane. I've spoken to a few Labour MPs, and they all kind of see what's going on. They're like, yeah, this is pretty insane. Like, they can disagree on us with how you implement some of these things. So if you're like, inequality is a problem, they should agree with that. Just purely like, there's no, it's that is just what a left wing party should at least agree.
Yeah.
You can totally disagree on how you solve it, but they're not like, that isn't front and center of their political conversation. They don't want to even touch it. I don't think I've heard Starmer say the word inequality. I don't know. Maybe they have. They are also bad at
Why
comms.
do you think they're afraid to talk about inequality? Because
I
then they
think
have to fix it.
Yeah, that's partly they have to fix. But then, equally with migration, they have to quote unquote fix migration, which they're not going to really be able to do. So it can't be that. It has to be like, I think it might be an ideological thing at this point where if I think they're so scared of becoming like the Corbyn Labour. I think they have embodied this attitude of like appeasement to the right. and that means that they in turn are basically losing themselves. They're like the guy who is trying to get the girl in high school, or like, you know, upper school, I guess, or whatever, college, sixth form if I'm being British, and they've reinvented their entire personality in order to try and get this girl who they have no chance with. It's like that. And so instead of, you know, finding themselves and finding the real girl they really love, which would be the end of the film, they don't do that. They've just said they're sort of following something that they can't get, and they're completely destroying themselves over doing that. And to that point, I think, yeah, if they start, I don't know, they probably are aware that they come across directionless, and they probably are aware that they come across like they flip flop a lot. If you were now to imagine that they went from Island of Strangers
Yeah.
to like Tax the Rich, it's just kind of hilarious how insane that flip flop would look. And probably even from them, they might be looking at it like, that's just too much. I sort of joked about, I was going to post this thing on Twitter, I should have done it. But I was going to do like Labour 2 days after Zach Polanski's trended, and it's like Starmer in like a Che Guevara hat, and he's got like Tax the Rich and a, you know, like the Palestinian thing on it.
But maybe
But
that'll actually happen, because, you know, they've been trying to out Farage. Look, I think that's probably because of the hold Blue Labour have over the government. So, but, you know,
yeah,
for anyone who doesn't know, Blue Labour is the sort of conservative wing of the Labour Party, the red wall sort of guys, and I think they have a huge amount of influence with Morgan McSweeney. So, unfortunately, they're like saying, no, you need to be tough on immigration, you need to stop the boats, and you need to, you know, don't talk about Brexit anymore. Let's forget about that, move on. And they honestly think that if the Labour Party move further to the right, that it will be able to thwart Farage. But, you know, most people realize, you know, you're not going to buy the copy, you're going to buy the original. So
yeah.
why would anyone vote for Farage Light if you can get the real thing? So
Yeah, like, and I think they look at it. I actually, this was one I was saying with this guy. I think they look at it that people. So like, I would say the immigration thing is a deeply emotional thing. It's not a logical thing, right? So they think, because they're, I guess, fucking robots. They think that if the number from last year goes down, that everyone will be happy. That will fix it. Because they think, I don't know, that they think it's a truly deeply logical thing, that they just think the numbers are too high. But it's not, right? Because you stop that number, right? Most people don't live in Dover. So maybe the people of Dover might have a change of mind or something. But most people live where they live, and they have a problem with with the boats. But to them, what is that? That means they have a problem with multiculturalism. So they're not going to change multiculturalism. Like, their town, the ethnic makeup, the cultural makeup of that town is how it is, right? And that is going to remain the same unless unless Starmer goes fucking insane and starts rounding people up and sending them away. That's not going to change. So, like, I don't see how. I think they purely think it's like this logical mathematical thing, but people, it isn't. It isn't. It's about immigration, and it's like they're being told that immigration, they're being told that diversity, multiculturalism has failed, and it's sort of like they're galvanizing on that perspective. The boats is just sort of a good packaging for it because it's a thing that is really happening. But it's, yeah, no one's gonna literally notice tomorrow if the boats stop. But I think, and when I was speaking to him, I think that's what they think. They think if they can just show that the graph says there are less of them, then everyone will be happy. But that's not the feeling that people have.
I think it comes back to what you're saying before about fairness. People, you know, have this idea that, well, these people are coming across in a boat. They're being put in a 4-star hotel. They're given free meals, free food, free phone, all these things. And some of them are working on the side, and it's unfair because we're paying, you know, somebody's getting up at 7 a.m, going to work by bus or by car, and then they're putting in those hours, and then they're seeing their money go to fund somebody who shouldn't be in the country. This is the idea that they have.
Yeah.
And you know, the fairness argument is pretty strong because, as you said, you know, it's something that many people feel. I just want to respond to it. There's a comment from Mr. E. Thanks, Mr. E. The doublespeak from the Ministry of Truth is a failing conundrum of conformable consensus, unfortunately. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then we have Urban Legends says, thank fuck someone's moving the Overton window.
Yeah.
I hope it's not going in the wrong direction there. But it's under. So
But
So
I just wanted to jump in on that feeling of unfairness.
yeah,
Like what they're doing, they're taking the feeling of, I don't know, people working really shit jobs, struggling to make ends meet. That's the unfairness they feel in their
yeah.
life, and they're being told that someone else has it better than them, that they perceive should be underneath them because they're from, the third world. Blah, 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 blah. So that's what they're perceiving as unfairness. Their lived material situation is worse than someone who isn't from this country. Our country doesn't care about its people. It doesn't take care of its own. They don't look after. We have veterans on the street. All of this sort of stuff. Those things are all true, but they're being told it's because of this small group and that they're treated better. Those things do not change unless you do things to change those things. And so, like, yeah, regardless of what they do about this immigration thing, unless you can change those things, they're just going to keep going down it because it's that resentment, that unfairness feeling, and then they just get sold a lot of misinformation and stuff.
but it's a bit like
Yeah, I
what.
mean, it's kind of obvious. They
Yeah,
need
it
to
was
not
like
do
at
that.
the beginning you were saying about the chavs. It used to be the people on benefits were the enemy, and now it's moved on to and the same
And they do
arguments
that
were.
one, and they still do that one, and they increasingly do that one, and that's why you hear it a bit more. My cat's just jumped on my lap. They do that one a bit more at the moment. They're like trying to bring in the welfare scroungers more and more, which I think Reform are going to struggle with that rhetoric. I think Tories can do it, but I think Reform are going to struggle with that. They're better off to keep going down the thing of. Can you hear my cat's purring? She's right next to my.
No,
Okay. They should really stick on the whole thing of they're taking your benefits or something like that because like they are getting very popular. I don't know, actually, I'd have to look into it how well they're doing in like Tory areas. But obviously they have a like lower economic bracket appeal. And so yeah, Reform will struggle if they keep talking. So that's why they talk sort of in these vague vaguenesses about cuts and like it's quite clever, the whole like efficiency, handle it like a businessman sort of thing. It's quite clever because they don't have to say what the cuts are or what they're
we're not going to
cutting.
cut you. We're going to cut the other guy.
Yeah, it's just
Or
all the migrants.
yeah, it's like
Like,
but like when it came to Brexit as well, we're not going to get rid of your neighbor. He's a good guy. We're going to get rid of the bad people.
yeah.
And it's not it's the what was it the
Yeah, there's
Eastern
always, and
European.
that's where they're so clever. There's always the out. There's always the look. No, like I have black mates. Like that's what Tommy Robinson's so clever at. He really like the more niche of a scapegoat, the more specific a scapegoat you have, the better. Because and you hear this all the time. It's sort of like I've started to really notice this in British culture. This kind of like we're really good people. And I heard it right a few times. I think it was even. What's the lady? It was like Shamima, something. She did something, Labour person,
Mm,
and she was talking about migration the other day. And they
Mumat,
do this. Yeah, yeah.
the Home
And
Secretary. Okay.
that's it. Yeah, and she said something. I should know that. It's crazy that I don't know.
Well, she's
Um,
only been Home Secretary for about 5 minutes, so that's okay.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so she said something like, Britain is a fair, equal country that champions people's rights. We appreciate diversity and equality, but we have to. But if for us to be able to live up to those things, we need to make sure everyone's integrated into our culture. So British people, we do this thing where we love to see ourselves as really morally good people. Like we are right. We do care about fairness. We love multiculturalism, but it's just those ones that don't want to fucking play by the rules. So we get our cake and we get to eat it. We get to hate the migrant. We get to scapegoat someone, and we get to be fucking brilliant for it. We're like it's such
There was an
weird
interview.
thing.
Yeah, I think it was Politics Joe did an interview with some guy on the street, and he was like, "I don't want any of them here. They all need to go." And they was like, "Don't you think that's racist?" I don't care if it's racist. Are you a racist? No, I'm not.
Yeah. They're everything. He's like they are everything. And like yeah, Tommy's the same where because it's about Islam, it's like Islam. I have black mates, I have Sikh mates. It's not about multiculturalism. It's just this one group, and it's so clever. Like it's really ingenious because that is it's just perfect. Give them a
The,
scapegoat. Give them
yeah,
that group.
but there's also something we mentioned as well about the Americanization. Something it reminded me of when I used to watch Fox News in the past. Something I noticed what they do is they would say the left, and the left could mean anyone. So the left would include people who would be like radical communists who would be like trying to tear down some building, and then but they'd also include like Joe Biden in the left.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like a massive spectrum, and they say, oh, the left are trying to bring, they end this country, or the left are the problem, or the left. So it's, but as soon as you say something like far right, I tend not to use these terms, because I know that I try to avoid. I use them from time to time, but I try to avoid them, because as soon as you say something like far right, well, people will say, I'm not far right, I'm just right, or I'm not far right, I'm just common sense, or I'm not.
Far right doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They've become postmodern. It's so funny. They have become like I've literally seen so many people say racism doesn't exist, racism cannot exist. Truly postmodern. Like, it's completely like they break down the term. They have such a material understanding when it comes to why people do racial crimes. I've noticed this one. Like, I posted the other day about, there was a clip of some young black lads like stealing some shit from a Greggs, and I was just talking about, if you make an antisocial society, don't be surprised when people start acting antisocial. And they're like, this is stupid, they're just bad people, sort of thing. But then if someone on the right does a crime, well, it's because this situation. If you take what's the name, the lady who did the
Lucy Conley.
Yeah. Oh, it's because her family situation. It's because she was pent up aggression. It's because she was stuck at home. They understand material elements when it's a hate crime. They get it, but it's just and that's where, like, I guess at the end of the day, like, I guess politics. We are animals, and we are emotional creatures, and we aren't as logical as we can be. Like, we could live under principles and stuff like that, but we're humans, and we just react to things, and like, we can be hypocritical. My cat's going crazy. All right, off you get. We can be like, we're emotional, reactive people, and for all our best principles and beliefs, that's why you need a state to fucking impose these things, because we can change like the breeze when fucking some smooth talker comes in and we go, actually, we don't like them anymore, So yeah.
I love the voices that you put into the videos as well. We have a comment from Christy who says, false outrage from Farage, raise emotions in a bad way. Yeah, it's a real thing about tapping into people's emotions. And Phil says, new Home Secretary said people on indefinite leave to remain should pay national insurance. They already do. Ignorance of deliberate attempt to mislead. Ignorance or a deliberate attempt to mislead. So there is this aspect where I'm a bit concerned about some of the language that Labour are pushing. So the Home Secretary talking about, people need to pay their way if they're on, if they have indefinite leave to remain. And there is this sort of thing about, well, if you're on benefits, you should be working. And we know that in many cases, people can't work. There aren't jobs available, or the job is available, but it's far away, or people are working already as carers. So they're providing support for their family, where the state should actually be providing this support. And instead you hear from the government, well, there are too many people on benefits, and people need to be kicked off benefit, or people are gaming the system. Something funny I just heard today, I think it was somebody on TikTok, not TikTok, it was on Talk TV, was talking about how, no, it was actually a ex-Tory minister. She was saying how, the people on benefits are using these TikTok videos to find out how you can, work the system. And I was thinking, like, but if you're rich, you just call this an accountant. If you're rich, you pay somebody to tell you what to put through as your taxes and what you can't put through, and how to work the system. Like, why is it a problem if somebody on TikTok says, look, these are the forms you need to fill out, this is what you have to do? Like, I don't think they're breaking the law, they're just giving people advice.
It comes from like that. This is what I was saying about that structural, deep underlying rot in our thinking, and Zach's mentioned this a bit, but like the whole the national fucking budget is the same as like a household finance. Like, that is a message that has been taught to us for a long time. So then you think of it all in that sense, right? If you were taught in school how money printing and shit works, you would probably I remember and you would ask good questions when you were a kid. You would ask like, where does money come from? And you'd be like, how much money is there on the planet? How can they print money? And then if you were to answer that and be like, well, what borrowing is buying from the future, and our economy relies on, and you taught them that, but that is never taught. So then your only understanding of wealth, finance, etc., is your personal experience, which again, like I was saying, like when you see the earth and it looks flat, it's exactly the same. So it's like, They're really cool ones. Also understanding there is like this deep nihilism and horrible perspective from the right, which is that people are inherently lazy and shit. And there are some people are just sick and really cool, but there's a lot of real lazy shites. And never understanding what creates that. Like, why, like, if you're really taught and you understand, like, what conditions breed that behavior, then you can kind of like, you don't have this perspective of like they're coming and stealing our benefits. Because in my head, when someone says they're coming and stealing our benefits, that just doesn't register because that's not how like I see the world. Like um, that it builds off of a perspective that being on benefits is some inherent net negative to the world. It's like they don't understand that people on benefits spend money in the economy. They're on benefits because their jobs don't pay enough. They can't find jobs. It's like all this sort of stuff, and it's like it's operating from such a wrong perspective. That's where you have to kind of like re-educate people, I guess. Where
You
to
know,
understand.
you're not like in America. They don't call them benefits; they call them entitlements.
Ah,
Because
you
you're
what
entitled,
cunts.
like so, and even our language is completely wrong. We call them
Yeah,
benefits, and it's not like a benefit is something
yeah,
extra,
yeah,
while an entitlement is something you either get it or you
yeah,
don't.
yeah. I get what
So,
you're saying.
like I try
I
to,
thought you were saying it like they were saying, "Oh, they feel entitled," like they're, yeah. But that comes from my British perspective. That saying the word entitled would come across like that. But yeah, it is. It's so interesting. Like, I watched a video. It's called like why free things are good actually, or something like that. And they're really powerful videos because they explain these things in a different way. And like, yeah, understand. Like that again comes down to like, um, we were never taught why the welfare state exists, and like you don't get taught the history, what was before it, and why we have it now. And it is, and if anyone on the right believes in the welfare state, which is increasingly few, but if they do, it's a recognition that capitalism cannot look after its weakest, vulnerable, and like most precarious people. It can't. So it's an admission that capitalism alone, libertarian capitalism, neoliberal capitalism, whatever, cannot provide for all members of society. So there will be a cluster of people at the bottom that will be under our system that will be there, and they need support. But people don't see it like that, and like they don't understand why it's there, and that's like yeah, a massive gap in that like collective knowledge, I guess. And so then you can tell them these stories that they're lazy people coming and take your benefits. You can't tell that to someone that understands these systems because it's like, well, that isn't how the world works. But it's yeah, that's where it's really difficult to win because you need to really massively educate lots of people to understand the world in a totally different way than they currently do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and going back to education, there needs to be critical thinking skills taught to children basically,
Yeah.
and people need to learn more about how money works and where money comes from. I just want to read one more comment and then I'll let you go, Jimmy, because it was been great having you on. If national identity was important, then why does England have a German adulterous king and queen? So I'm told.
Is it
Well,
true? I heard this the other day, and I do not know if it's true. I heard the Queen. Now this it's gonna get clipped, so I'm gonna say it in a shit way, so it doesn't make a good clip. I've heard the Queen descends from like that she is somehow connected to the Prophet Muhammad. Now I say it sounds crazy, but I've heard that somehow she's somehow like connected. Can someone fact check if that's bullshit?
Yeah, please somebody fact check that.
Yeah, yeah, because that would be just brilliant if it was true.
It would upset Tommy Robinson. No end.
Yeah, man. I'd
And
love to hear.
before we go, what's your take on the flags? So what's happening with the flags being put up around? Like for me, patriotism is actually caring about people, not pieces of fabric. Caring about people in your society, making sure that there is no more inequality, lifting people out of poverty, looking out, even doing simple things like looking after your neighbor, checking in on them. I don't want to sound cliche like Keir Starmer, but but thinking, looking at something that's wrong and trying to fix it. The idea that there are food banks. I'm a huge advocate for eliminating food banks. They should not exist because they, as it's a failure of the state if people have to rely on something like a food bank.
Yeah.
People should earn enough money to buy food, or if they can't, it should be provided for them through some sort of welfare state. But instead, what we're hearing a lot about is how if you wave a flag, then you're a patriot. But what was your response to people like painting roundabouts and stuff like that?
I just want to say I just fact checked myself. It's bullshit. Everyone in the
Okay.
chat saying it's bullshit. So yeah,
No,
sus. But it would have been good. Yeah, yeah. With like the flags thing, man, it's just like it's so cringe to me because I again I visit lots of places in Britain, especially oldie worldy towns because I do like going there, and I go to London a lot, and I see the flag all the time, and I really love the Union Jack. I don't really personally like really use the St George's Cross. I've never seen many people use it, but the Union Jack I don't think has I don't know. I see it everywhere, and I saw it everywhere before this whole campaign. I honestly, and I remember I would film it actually because you. I have probably quite a lot of clips. I'm sure I could montage them with the dates and stuff, and be like, "Look, this is just from my phone," because I was like hearing this rhetoric around you can't have the fucking flag. Where they come up with this shit? But you can't have the flag. They just don't leave the house. They cannot leave the house. My town near me has all these flags that have always been up, and they're just all around. It's like a small oldie worldy town. They've always had them up. Um, and it was never weird. And why I fucking and this new thing sucks, like this putting the flags up sucks, because it's just weird now. It's like I like having Union Jacks, and now it's just they've made it weird. They made it cringe. Like it's now a thing that they're doing, and it's got some weird motive behind it. And that's why they do it, and it's clever because now it's like you have made the left now not want to put your flag up whilst trying to say that you're doing this to unite people, but you know that now we're going to feel like we don't want to be associated with you, so now we're less likely to do that, and they know that. And the flag has been up and around everywhere, like forever. It's always up. Go to any hotel, go to any like government building, maybe there's one, maybe you can find one or two that's been tweeted about that they took the flag, I don't know. But like generally, being a human that goes outside, you see the flag, and it's never been a way. Go to Tesco's. Every item has the fucking Union Jack on it. Like it's so funny. Like yeah, it's so funny when you live with like my wife again. She's Ukrainian, and she hears me listen to this stuff, and she's like, "What are they talking about?" Like they love like being raised in Ukraine. They grew up watching Harry Potter, and they have like this really good image of Britain. They're like, "Oh, it's so cool," and then they idolize all this sort of like old British heritage, all like Bridgertons, all this sort of TV shows that are very popular. Make ironically, yeah, are patriots watching Bridgerton? Probably not. Yet that's made more people obsessed with like British aristocracy and stuff all around the world. Um, and she listens to the stuff I'm talking about, and it's so funny because she has no stake in it because she's just come here now, and she's like, British stuff is everywhere. Like, it's so weird to me. But yeah, I guess I obviously always say it, but like I love this country, and patriotism isn't wiggling a flag around or spraying it on a roundabout. And that's the other thing. It looks fucking tacky. So they tie them up to like lampposts with cable ties. They do because they're rushing through them. They don't do them tight enough. One of them slides down. The flag's now like this. It's wrapped around a grey, mouldy fucking lamppost. It's just tacky. It just looks low quality.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Like if you're really going to do it, then you do it in style. You'd get a flagpole, you put it up, and you'd have one big one, maybe in the center of the town. And like there was a video I responded to where it was and we're running a little bit over time, but there was a video I was responding to where they had filled an entire street with them, and there were like small ones about like this high, and in the video, whoever filmed it had put the camera on the ground, and I was thinking like, if you're driving a car, you're not going to see the pedestrians because it's a wall of flags. Yeah. And then you're not going to, and then they had them on lampposts as well, and they had them on the stoplights. So like, imagine somebody driving and they'd pass through a red light.
It's graffiti at that point, isn't
it? Yeah, it's like graffiti. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just it's so strange, and you can't go over the irony that they're like made in China and bought on Amazon. So like it's just too silly.
I just want to read some more comments and then I'll let you go. Question, Jimmy: do you think Westminster needs a social contract when its people just like the Scottish government has with the Scottish people? Do you think there should be a social contract?
I mean, it sounds good. What does that entail? I don't know really what that entails. Like in Scotland, I didn't know they did that. So yeah, it sounds nice. I would have to know what that is and what it would look like. But
and finally,
as in like saying by law we have to do this toward but surely they have that already, right? No.
Yeah. And then Phil says bags of carrots have Union flag packaging.
Yeah. It's these people live in a different planet. That is it. And it's like, it's just
you're not allowed to wave the flag.
Yeah, and they also hate everything that Britain has done in like the last 20 years. They never talk about music. They never talk about films. They never talk about anything actually cultural. Like we are good at stuff. Like we make great musicians. I never hear them fucking celebrating our musicians. I never hear them getting mad that we cut 30% of the budget for arts and films over austerity. Like King's speech cost about 5 million to make and it grossed hundreds of
Yes,
millions.
yes.
And it was like a real success story of like,
But
yeah,
as you said, like
grassroots Brit.
yeah, but as you said, also Harry Potter or
Yeah.
Downton Abbey, for example. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I remember saying to someone like, "Go to London, you will see flags." And one of the response was, "Yeah, but they're all cheap, sold by vendors to tourists." It's like you just aren't happy, are you? There's no winning these people. Like they're just unhappy. That's what it is. And I don't think they can. I would guess at some point, a lot of these people that are real flag shaggers, they're like not connected with real culture. I think they're probably from towns that are probably a bit stuck in the past, a bit boring, a bit maybe run down. Some of them. And I think, like, yeah, maybe it does feel that their culture's a bit boring now. Because there are places in the UK that have become very boring, a bit heartless, a bit soulless. Um, but I would tell them move. Sorry, that's very privileged. They probably can't move. But, you know, there are places, go and look around. There are places, a lot of places in Britain that are absolutely brilliant. You should enjoy Notting Hill. You should be able to walk there and be like, this is incredible. Or you should be able to go to Hackney Wick and be like, the cafes here are really nice. The people are really cool. It's a nice community. Be proud of your country. Like, that's what actual patriotism is. Isn't wrapping a fucking Amazon, flag around a lamppost, you idiot.
So that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for coming on tonight. And make sure to check out Jimmy's channel on YouTube, and after the show, I'll be posting your links and social media on this on the description of this. So it was great to have you on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, big up, man. It was really fun chatting.
Great to have you on once again. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm sorry it took me so long, but it was really good chat. I'm glad we got it done.
Cool. So, guys, I'll see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. See you soon, and have a great weekend. Good night, everyone.
Bye bye.